honor, gentleman, Gerry Cooney.
Great to be here with you today. A couple of quick stories. I heard that Gerry was talking about the guy had 14 children. Didn't they know about bowling alleys? Bowling! I got a bunch of prize fighters that they just keep making babies. You know, and the other story was, we were talking to somebody earlier tonight who knew Jake LaMotta. Jake LaMotta was a good friend of mine. I loved him. The stories he told were unbelievable. And he was a pretty crazy guy, very jealous and insecure, but he could fight. He fought Sugar Ray Robinson twice in 3 weeks. You know, today it takes 10 years to get that to happen, you know what I mean? And he used to tell a story about, there's nothing I wouldn't do for my good friend Gerry Cooney, and there's nothing my good friend Gerry Cooney wouldn't do for me. He said, so we walk around doing nothing for each other. Anyway, listen, I'm here to talk to you a little bit about my career and about my life with God and some of the pitfalls that we go through and somehow how we become fighters. You know, fighters, not all of them, but a lot of them come from dysfunctional, troubled backgrounds. And I was one of those guys that found out early on that I was so angry for where I grew up. And my father was a big drinker, and you know, and I used to hide from him. And I had 5 brothers and sisters, and they did the same thing. And you know, boxing was a way for me to express my anger for what was going on in my home. And then they put my picture in the paper. I remember 16 years old, after every fight I used to go to the New York, to the newsstand, and it seemed like my picture was on the back page of the Daily News after every fight I had. And they seemed to follow me. And I won the middleweight championship that year. And I remember I became a fighter because my older brother, Tom, he left the house when he was 15, and a couple years later he went to the gym, and I loved that guy. So I used to go, and I'd spend a little time with him. Then I thought, I had a heavy bag in the basement, I was hitting a heavy bag, I felt pretty good. I said, hey, can I box somebody? And he put me in there with this little Italian guy. And he kicked my ass. I threw the gloves down, I went home, I said, forget it, I'm not doing this no more. But the next day, I went down into the basement and I hit the heavy bag again, realizing that the guy was going to come on me and I had to breathe. If I didn't breathe, I was going to get tired. And so 3 days later, 15 and a half, I went back to the gym and I said, can I fight that kid again? And that kid couldn't do that to me anymore. And then 6 months later, I won the middleweight championship in the Golden Gloves in New York City. And somebody was talking to me also about Jack Dempsey. And he was the guy who I got Fighter of the Year, myself and Johnny Turner. I don't know if you remember that name. He was also a professional fighter, and Jack Dempsey presented us with our trophies, and it was a great experience. And so boxing for me, I never really, to be honest with you, I mean, I don't know about the other fighters here. I never liked to fight, but I didn't have a choice. You know, I wasn't going to college. I had that opportunity for me. I sat in the back of the room because if I didn't talk and you couldn't see me, you wouldn't, you know, pick on me, right? And so boxing was my ticket, and I was good at it. You know, I had so many great experiences. You know, I won the Golden Gloves twice. I went into the finals 3 times. I want to tell you really quickly about when I was 18 years old. I'm fighting on the United States team, and I go to Europe. And I fight over in England and a couple different places. I have 4 fights. I have 4 knockouts. I knocked out all 4 guys. I remember I hit a guy over there. His name, I can't forget his name, Terry Chard, with the best left hook I ever threw in my life, right? He just looked at me. And my first thought was, oh shit. And I wound up knocking the guy out in the next round with body shots. And that was another gift that I got from my oldest brother, who I saw him one time. I was 17, we were in a bar, and it was very crowded. He kept backing on the table. It was this big guy, bigger than him, called him outside, and I saw my brother go outside with him, and he hit the guy with the right hand to the body and a hook on the chin, and knocked the wind out of him and knocked it uncold, and it was the most horrific thing I've ever seen. And I hear the cops coming, and I got my brother out of there, and so that's how it became a fight, and the gifts that we had. So anyway, I come back from Europe, I have 4 fights, I have 4 knockouts, and the president of the Olympic Committee told me that the Russians were coming. A call of 10 heavyweight Russian champions, and did I want to fight? And I said, sure, okay, I'll fight. But it was summertime, and I was out drinking all the time with my buddies, drinking beers, and like 6 days before the fight, I get the phone call, say the fight's on, and I'm fighting the 3rd-ranked heavyweight champion. Do I want to fight? So of course I say, yeah, right? I said Madison Square Garden. There's my hometown. And so I run for 6 days. I'm drinking Perrier water, Brussels sprouts, and best I can. In six days, I go to the garden, and all my friends were all there with the posters on the sides, Loonies for Cooney and all that stuff. And I get into the ring, and I always liked that when the bell rang, I was going to touch you. I was going to touch you with something I had and make you not want to come back at me, right? And I just happened to hit him with a hook on the chin, and I knocked him out cold in the 1st round. And thank God that happened, because had it gone the 2nd round, he'd have killed me, that guy. You know what I mean? And then, so the next day, I get a phone call from the president of the Olympic Committee, Colonel Hull, his name was, and he said to me, Gerry, you made it to the finals of the Olympic trials. And the finals of the Olympic trials, the top 8 guys, goes to Colorado Springs, and they fight it out for 2 weeks, and the top 2 guys goes to the Olympics, right? He said, you made the team. Do you want to go? I said, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it. He said, Gerry, this is the finals of the Olympic trial. I said, my father's very sick. I got to stay close to my family. I'm not going to be able to go. He asked me 3 times that day, right? And I told him, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. He said, are you sure? And he hung up the phone. And that was 10% true. 90% was, I don't belong there. I'm not good enough. When am I going to go make an ass of myself? And the biggest day of my life, to this day, I regret not taking that opportunity. Because I probably couldn't have made it, but I could have grown from that experience. And I tell kids today, I do still work with kids, and I teach them the truth, and I tell them the truth, and I tell them about defense first, protect yourself first. Anybody can punch, but you can't get hit on the nose, you know what I mean? And so, that's my story. It's the biggest regret of my life. The second biggest day in my life was May 11th, 1981. I'm ranked #1 in the world now as a professional, right? And I'm fighting Kenny Norton Mandingo. It's not you guys. I'm a lot older than all of you here, so you guys don't know who that is. Mandingo was a movie that he did. He was a badass, right? And so I'm fighting him in the garden. It's my hometown, and
You whooped his ass.
Oh, come on, man. All right, I did all right. So anyway, I'm going to the garden, and I open the door of my dressing room, and HBO's out in front of my door saying, how you feeling, Gerry? And I'm thinking to myself, you really want to know how I'm feeling right now? I get to the garden, same thing. I get in there, and he was like a beast. But that night, when I got into the ring and I was in the center of the ring with him, the only thing I could think was, he's not that big. He says, he's not that big. And so the bell rang, and I hit him with the right hand, and I saw him buckle a little bit. And I gotta tell you, that felt good. That was really good, right? So I figured, let me take a little shot here. It was a 10-round fight, and I hadn't gone distance very much. I had a lot of knockouts in my career. So I spun him into the corner, and I caught him. He was bobbing and weaving, and I caught him with an uppercut, and you could see him go limp. But he was sitting on the seat, so he couldn't fall down. And the referee was one of those guys let the fights go on forever. They probably could have stopped me in 30 seconds. So I got 54 seconds. So I stopped him in 54 seconds. I'm getting a shot at the heavyweight championship of the world, right? You think that night I'm saying to myself, well, I got to get a good trainer. I got to get a nutritionist. I got to get a condition coach. I got to get ready. This is what I'm doing, right? But that's not what happened to me. I started drinking heavily. And I don't know whether it was fear of that success. I don't know if I felt like I deserved it. I still can't figure it out in this crazy mind. But I got it. And I started drinking and playing. I was to find out years later that Larry Holmes, who's a great friend of mine today, they never drank, never smoked, never took a drug, any time in his career. And I didn't really have someone to, like steer me along the road. Like I wish I had somebody that could have grabbed me by the arm and said, come on, Cooney, let's take a shot. But that being said, Larry Holmes was one of the greatest champions of all. I'm on a radio station called Sirius XM, and we do a boxing show twice a week, 2 hours, Mondays and Fridays from 12 to 2 on channel 156, just saying. I'm just saying. So I just lost my point. I lost my direction. But anyway.
Larry
Well,
Holmes.
don't say that name again, brother. And we're great friends. And we work together all the time. And we work at helping people. We help bringing people together. And that's been a gift that I have because I never had that all my life. The person that needs your help. I've been going to an orphanage. I was speaking to Jerry a little bit about it for 12, 13 years now. And I work with these kids that they accept me in. They watch the fight. They watch the highlight film and they identify with the fight of life. And they don't really have a shot. But I give them hope. We can only pass the hope around. We can only give them, and show them the way. And hopefully they will give it back sometime. And that's my story. Is that I been through hell, but I made it out. I don't know how. And my God, we're talking about God, right? How did God take this guy who came from where I came from? I learned 5 things. I was no good. I was a failure. I was never going to amount to anything. Don't trust nobody. And he took me from where I came from and built me up. Built me up. And that story in the book about the guy was rowing the boat and God was steering and the guy was rowing and God was steering. The guy got tired. He said, hey, God, can I steer? And God said, yes, my son, you can, but I don't row. I have to do the work. I got to figure this out. I have to stand up and ask the question. And what we do as people, if you go from dysfunction, you attract dysfunction. So I had these crazy managers that couldn't stand each other, and I'm back and forth, I'm in the middle, I don't know what's going on. Nobody's helping me to make good decisions. And so, I made a lot of mistakes. And, I think so much about how it would have been to have been the heavyweight champion of the world and to get that gift and to win that prize. But I really feel that God looked out for me that I didn't get that heavyweight championship of the world. Because had I got that heavyweight championship of the world, I wouldn't be here with you today, giving you all a hard time. It was meant the way the cards unfolded. And, I've had, Jerry was talking to me about an organization to help fighters. We did that. We helped so many guys get back on track, go to school, help, drug addiction, alcohol, just all kinds of problems, spousal problems. We helped them get back to form a life. That's what my job is, for me, is to help you, to help people stand up, take a deep breath, and move forward. And so anyway, I just want to say that I traveled the world a couple of times. I've had the greatest life in the world. And we talk about God. I go to Mass 2, 3, 4 days a week. I love going to Mass. And God was the guy that I used to think, I used to say, God, get me out of this one. I won't do it again. Please, God, get me out of this one. And most of the times he did. But in the big nights, he didn't. And I was so mad. Like, come on, God, what's the story? And that story about, I was on the beach with God, and there was 2 sets of footprints in the sand, right? And then during my most troublesome time, God, my most trouble, you left me. I was all alone. And you know the story. God said, no, son, that's when I carried you. And I have that in my heart today. And that, you know, this country, this world is falling apart. It's kind of scary. And, you know, wow, you just think about what's happening today in this world. I mean, there's everything. So anyway, I had a great career. I fought Larry Holmes in 1982. I got stopped in the 13th round. I hate that round. But we had a great time. And you know, there was a lot of racism going on about black and white, black and white, black and white. Holmes had nothing to do with it. I had nothing to do with it. You know what I was doing? I was living in Vegas in a training camp, eating lobster tail and turtle soup. I didn't know trying to talk about racism. I was fighting my ass off to get there. I was in it for a tough fight. And he was doing the same thing. And I was so angry at him because I felt it was him. I felt it was him. I know it was Don King. I don't know if it was my management. It could have been them too. I don't know. But the night of the fight, I mean, someone mentioned that tonight too. There was like 32,000 people in that stadium. When I came out, I couldn't see the top of the stadium. And all I'm thinking is, I just want to hit it with one good hook. Let me hit it with one good hook, right? So we get into the ring and the announcers and all that there, which I couldn't understand. Just let the bell ring. You know, once the bell rings, I got to fight. You don't got to introduce him and that neighbor and this guy over there. Ring the bell. Let me fight. And he says, Larry looks at me when Mills Lane, the great referee, says, who really did me some injustice that night. You know, Holmes was so smart. Larry Holmes was such a great, experienced guy, and he did not like me hitting him in the belly. So every time I came to the belly, he was pulling my head down, and I was hitting him low, and the referee couldn't see he was pulling my head down. I got 3 points taken away that night for low blows. But, so, Larry Holmes and I are in the center of the ring, and the referee says, let's get it on. And Larry Holmes looks at me and says, hey, Jerry, let's have a good fight. I said, what'd you say that for? You know what I mean? I was taking that rage with me in the ring, right? And then I get dropped in the second round. I'm saying to myself, how'd you get here? But I got up and I fought back. And we had a great fight. And what I learned from him that night, I never got the chance. I would have loved to have had a rematch. I don't know why they didn't get us a rematch, because that fight was good enough for us to have a rematch. And I learned so much from his experience. I mean, we did a heavyweight tournament, right? And of all the fighters, from Jack Johnson to Marcy, that's just everybody. Larry Holmes turned up 2 or 3 in history. That was a good fight. And he's a great man. So I went on for a while, and I went out, had this great place in the Hamptons, and I hung out there, and had a good time. And every once in a while, I had these crazy managers. They could want to make money off me, right? So I'd take another fight. And but my career was really over at that time. And finally came the day where I had to learn. I was fighting George Foreman. I was promoting some of his fights, and I had a great. It was all good. I was promoting Duran, Leonard, Foreman, and I was having a good life. And Foreman came to me one day and said, "Listen, Jerry, why don't you and me fight?" And I thought, my date is April 21st, 1988. When I put down alcohol, and cigarettes, and any other kind of recreational things I was doing at the time that was no good for me. And so I was cleaned up for a while. I'm thinking, it was like $2.5 million. And I thought, wow, I never did it sober before. I never did it clean. Why don't I take this shot? And so I took the fight. And I got in great shape. And I hit Holmes. He talks about it. You want to go on YouTube. It's on David Letterman. He talks about the heaviest guy, the hardest guy that I hit him was me. And I hit him with a hook. And I hadn't fought in a few years, so my timing was off, and I got caught with an uppercut, and I got stopped in the second round. But it was the greatest thing in the world for me, because it helped me to turn the page in my life. I could never turn the page. I never knew which way I was going, what was happening next. I had all these crazy sounds in my head from family. You know, family was you know, we grew up tough. And I was trying to figure out all their problems and fix them. And I found out that nobody fixed my problem. I had to fall down every time I did. And it wasn't until I got up and dusted off my pants and turned the page on my life. And that fight did that for me that night. And I have a great family who's never seen me drinking, never saw me in that kind of a state. And I come and go. I do whatever I want. People call me. I never won a championship. You know, I never won a championship. I'm still invited to come and tell you my story. And, you know, I'm only hoping that, listen, it's a story of hope and happiness and joy. And last night, I was with my 3 children and my wife at my son's house down on the beach in New Jersey. I had the greatest time of my life. Those are the moments for me. Friendships, you know. I love you guys coming here for me today. This is a tough gig we got going on. I want home one more time. I'm just kidding. He's the greatest. So, but anyway, so the point I'm just saying is that I got to experience things. I was with Ali. There was a chance of me fighting Ali back in the day, and he, you know, called my mother and told my mother I'm going to be fine, and all those great things. Frank Sinatra, Bob Hope on the, you know, all those moments that I could. You read my book? Oh, I forgot to sell my book. And it talks about the ups and the downs and turning the page and asking for help and making the change and being available, being intimate with my wife, loving me. See, when you gave me a compliment, I would spend 10 minutes talking you out of it. That was me. And if I ran into 100 people today and one person was not nice to me, it ruined my whole day. That's where I was at. That's the mentality I had that I no longer have. I know most of you can't stand me. Oh, you guys are slow. There you go. But, you know, it's like we get 100 years or less to figure this out, right? Someone told me, I listened to this podcast and it said, if you found out you had 10 days to live, what would you do with it? And I would want to be with all the people I love. And I want to make the most of my life. I want to grow more. I want to have all those things. I want to be free. You know, of all those boogeymans, those voices in my head. It's not easy all the time. But, you know, telling my story, coming here with you, it helps me get a little closer to that. And so I'm really grateful to be with you today. I know Jerry still got a bunch of questions, Q&As, and I'm not allowed to answer any questions, so forget it. And so listen, we have to just play it forward, right? Play it forward. Be available to that next person. You know, I go to the gym, I teach guys how to really fight, how to protect yourself first. Anybody can punch. Safety. That's what I was given that as a fighter, my trainer, but I couldn't really hold it. Like when the bell rang, I had to fight. And today I'm learning to be a little smarter and to protect ourselves and to get the information we need before we move forward. And that's really the gift, to be open enough to do that. And that's what I do, and it's taken me a lot of great places. Look at, I'm here today with you guys. I have a great book to tell you guys about, a little bit about my life, and hopefully somewhere down the road, I'm going to take that guy to the championship. I was right there. I truly believe that if I fought Holmes again, back then, I would have beat Larry Holmes. And I mean, sure, he wouldn't agree with that, you know what I mean? But listen, he's one of my best friends. That's what boxing does for us. That's what growing up does. Freedom, joy, love. Thank you guys.